I've been with Philip for 7 years, and I've spent a small fortune on him. Later, when he was about to get engaged, he asked me to choose between taking the money and leaving or being his mistress. I chose neither. I left cleanly. I didn't even touch the high breakup fee. I just asked him for a promise. No matter what difficulties I encounter in the future, as long as I come to him, he has to help me. A few years later, a wealthy second generation with great power took a fancy to me and pestered me. In desperation, I called Philip's number. Why did you reject him? On the other end of the phone, the man seemed in a good mood. Don't you like him? I sighed. I'm already married. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. There was a full minute of silence beside my ear. I clenched my phone, and all I could hear was the man's deep breathing. When did you get married? Philip's tone was cold, and his words were clear. Why didn't you tell me? There's no need to inform an ex-sugar daddy that you're married. I smiled bitterly. I just got the marriage certificate not long ago. We met through a blind date. Such a trivial matter. I didn't dare to bother you. There was another silence. Philip said indifferently, I see. Amid the noisy background sound, there were several casual clicks. The lighter cover opened and was roughly closed again. I looked down at my toes and didn't dare to make a sound. This phone call was really presumptuous. After breaking up for so many years, I'm already married, and he has a new person by his side. If Nick hadn't been too excessive, I wouldn't have wanted to disturb his life again. Nick is a well-known playboy in City S. He's just in his early 20s, indulging in a life of debauchery and acting recklessly. We met at a friend's dinner. He raised his eyebrows, and his eyes lingered on my face. After the dinner, Nick's assistant smiled and handed me a room card. I pushed it back and refused directly, but Nick seemed to interpret this action as playing hard to get. For 3 months, he blocked me at the door of my company every day after work, holding a bouquet of flowers, making a big show of it. I asked someone to convey a message to him, euphemistically saying that I was married and asking him not to bother me. But he went even further and even offered to hire me as his secretary. Gossip is fearsome. If this continues, I won't be able to keep my job. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but say, Nick's family owns mines, and he also has connections in the underworld. Only you can suppress him. Ask me to suppress him. Philip asked casually. Melissa, what about your husband? Is he dead? My mind went blank for a moment. I said awkwardly, he's an ordinary person like me, with no special abilities. There was a cold laugh on the other end of the phone, as if mocking me. No matter how arrogant Nick was, he was just a wealthy second generation from a third-tier city. At this level, he couldn't even get into Philip's circle. Philip was a third generation who grew up in the capital city, with a proper background. He had both power and wealth. Big shots in the eyes of many people were just like ants to him. I bit my lip and was about to speak. A gentlewoman's voice reached my ears first. Philip, who are you talking to on the phone? Philip lied without any change in his expression. A business partner. The woman obviously didn't believe it, and her tone was a bit arrogant. Give it to me and let me see. Stop making trouble. He chided softly, with an indescribable tenderness. I hung up the phone in a panic, and my hands and feet turned cold. Larry was on a business trip and didn't know about Nick's matter. So when he called and asked me if I had any troubles these days, I sniffled and forced a smile. I'm fine. What could be wrong? Larry's voice was clear and calm as usual. If there's anything, tell me in time. I'll solve it. My heart ached. In the restroom of the restaurant, I covered my eyes. Larry was just an ordinary person who worked hard, against the powerful. What could he solve? He would just get hurt. I told him to rest early. Unexpectedly, when the words came out, I choked up. The man on the other end of the phone paused in his breathing, and his tone turned cold. Melissa, what happened? I hung up the phone in a hurry. Nick colluded with my leader and set up a trap of a dinner. I thought it was just an important business negotiation. When I arrived at the scene, I realized that the client was Nick. I had colleagues with me. At this moment, I couldn't just turn around and leave willfully. Probably he found it interesting to see me sitting there helplessly. Nick looked at me brazenly, with a look of certainty. During the second half of the dinner, he kept plying me with alcohol quietly. When the dinner was about to end, I found an opportunity to slip out of the restaurant. As a result, someone grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. Do you really think you can escape from me? The man's cynical voice sounded above my head. He stroked my face, smiling. with a frivolous look in the corner of his eye. I frowned and was about to scold him to let me go. Suddenly, a strong beam of light shone on me, making it almost impossible for me to open my eyes. A low-key and smooth Bentley parked there arrogantly. The rear window rolled down, revealing a slightly cold face. When I met Philip's gaze, my face turned white. After that phone call, I had no hope that he would help me. Why did he suddenly appear in City S? I took a deep breath and raised my arm, and I easily broke free from Nick. He stood there in a daze, stuttering. "Uncle." Nick apologized to me. He said reluctantly, "Ms. Melissa, I was trying to reach for something beyond my reach. I won't bother you anymore." As he said this, he looked at Philip carefully. The latter lifted his eyelids and looked back without saying a word. Nick's face turned white, and he said with a mournful face, "Uncle, I really didn't know she was your woman. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to touch her even if I had the courage." I coughed lightly and emphasized, "It was in the past. We've already broken up now." Philip glanced at me and didn't say anything. After a while, he coldly turned his head. "Why don't you leave?" Nick left dejectedly. The temperature in the car got colder. I couldn't help but shiver. Philip casually grabbed his coat and threw it on me. I was wearing a halter-neck dress today because I wanted to feel cool. Philip didn't like me wearing clothes that exposed my arms. In my memory, his slightly cool knuckles pressed against my body, inch by inch, and his voice was so soft that it seemed to squeeze out from between his teeth. "Here, here, and here." That slender finger suddenly arched, and I let out a low whimper. He said slowly, "It's all mine. Don't let others see it. And don't let others touch it either. Whoever touches it will die." I coughed softly. Then should I leave? Philip lowered his long eyelashes, as if he didn't hear me. After a while, he looked at me calmly. "Where do you live? I'll send you back." I waved my hand. "No need. I can just take the subway. It's very convenient." Philip was silent for a moment and sneered slightly. "Are you afraid of me?" I was taken aback. And he mocked. "I'm not Nick. I won't lay a hand on a married woman." That's true. Philip was always picky. Otherwise, when he was with me, it wouldn't have been his first time. I'm almost 30 years old. How could I compare to those young girls? I'm not as good as Miss Nora, who is a good match for him. He couldn't possibly have any feelings for me. Even if he did, it should be boredom after getting tired of playing. I naively thought that Philip loved me for a while, since I ran away from home at 18 and he took me back to that villa. He protected me from being discovered by my drug-addicted parents, sent me to a prestigious foreign university, and gave me a lot of living expenses every month, turning me into a wealthy young lady. Over the years, it must have cost a small fortune. Philip never mentioned it in front of me. His identity was sensitive, and it wasn't easy for him to go abroad, but he always came to see me. The flight took dozens of hours. He was exhausted, but he still forced himself to ask me how I was and if I had enough money. I asked him why he was so good to me. Philip's friends also had mistresses, but they were only willing to throw some money at them and wouldn't spend so much energy on them. Philip smiled and said clearly, "You're the pet I picked up. Of course, I'll take good care of you." Later, when I thought about this sentence, I suddenly understood the relationship between us. He had already given the answer. I was just a pet. He could keep me by his side, or he could discard me. He could even have two at the same time. Philip obviously didn't want to lose me. After attending Miss Nora's engagement banquet in the morning, he sat in front of me without changing his clothes. "Our relationship remains the same. You don't have to worry." My voice trembled a bit. "What do you mean by the relationship remains the same?" Philip was cold and calm. "She won't bother us. If you don't want to." He raised his eyebrows slightly. Without a trace of reluctance, "You can leave with $10 million. I closed my eyes and said I needed to think about it. In fact, there was nothing to think about. Everyone has their limits. I couldn't be a mistress. I just needed a night to buffer so that he would think that it wasn't easy for me to make the decision to leave him. Some of my gossipy friends saw the engagement news and called that night to ask him how he dealt with me. Philip answered the phone in front of me without hesitation, his wrist cold and white. "It depends on her. I don't care. What about whether you're reluctant or not?" He lowered his eyes and laughed. "You're just a thing." Philip sent me home. The pressure around him eased. Not as sharp and cold as before. "Why did you think of getting married?" Philip's eyes swept over my face. Who was it that said they didn't plan to get married in this life? Those were just harsh words when we broke up. I smiled quietly. I didn't expect to meet someone I like so much. Maybe he's the so-called right person. I didn't meet Larry through a blind date. I was transferred at work and worked under Larry for a few months. He was the most capable boss I've ever met. He was experienced in human relations and had strong execution ability. He managed the temporarily formed small team in an orderly manner. The way he handled things with ease made me feel that he was like Philip in a way. I'm a person who cares about appearance. Larry's features were delicate and reserved. When he looked at me intently, it was like a gentle warm breeze. The first time I saw him, I thought of Philip. Philip was also a recognized handsome guy in the circle. His handsomeness was sharp, like the cold wind with ice thorns in winter, piercing deep into the bone. He was exactly the type I liked, so I secretly liked him for many years. But who said that you can only like one person in your life? Larry was unmarried and from a well-off family, with no special background. No background was good. He was a man I could reach. Out of the corner of my eye, the veins on Philip's arm resting on the steering wheel were slightly bulging. He sneered, "What's the use of the right person? An ordinary person who can't protect you. Even someone like Nick can harass you casually. Melissa, divorce him immediately. Don't make mistakes again and again. Who is he calling a waste?" I glared at him. Philip lowered his eyes, with a hint of arrogance. After the divorce, my phone vibrated. Interrupting him, I suddenly remembered that I hadn't called Larry back. Just as my finger touched the screen, my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Philip's gaze fell on the caller ID, and his eyes trembled. "Larry, why do you have his number?" I was confused. "He's my husband. Of course I have his number." As soon as I finished speaking, I belatedly looked at Philip, and the latter's expression was extremely ugly. "How does he know Larry?" I hesitated for a moment. Still, I answered the phone in front of Philip, my tone brisk. "Honey, what's up? I was working overtime just now. I was in a bad mood, but I'm okay now. Don't worry." Philip suddenly pressed my forearm, and the phone landed on the steering wheel with a bang. I gave him an annoyed glare, but I saw him pursing his lips and turning on the speakerphone. A few seconds later, Larry's gentle voice came from the receiver. "I guessed as much," he said in a low voice. "Melissa, you have to believe me. No matter what happens, I have the ability to help you solve it." I smiled. "Of course I believe you." Philip's phone vibrated. After I hung up, he answered the phone expressionlessly. "Speak." A muttering voice came faintly from the receiver, and my heart tightened. It was Nick's voice. "Uncle, you're so heartless. Just for a woman, you're doing this to me." Philip frowned. "What am I doing to you? Make it clear." Nick complained aggrievedly. "I just received the notice. For the mines my family contracted. The mining licenses can't be obtained suddenly, and the clients we've been working with steadily want to terminate the contract suddenly." Philip suddenly laughed mockingly, looking at the whole city. "Who else but you has such great power? It can't be the one from the Humphrey family, right? Why would that person be in City S?" Philip said indifferently. "Someone above is dealing with you. Just bear it." Nick's voice sounded like he was about to cry. "No, Uncle. Now only you can save my family. You have no ability, and you dared to touch someone else's wife. You deserve it." After hanging up the phone, Philip remained silent. There was a strange expression on his handsome face, a half smile, and a bit of anger. I looked at him in surprise. "Do you know Larry?" He sneered. "Which one are you talking about? Your useless husband, or the heir of the Humphrey family's group worth billions?" "The heir of the Humphrey family's group worth billions." How did he come to that conclusion? I was shocked and waved my hands repeatedly. "You misunderstood. Forget it. Just pretend I didn't ask." Philip laughed softly. When he raised his eyes to look at me, there was a trace of pity. "Melissa, you've been deceived." I thought Philip must be crazy. He said that Larry was the heir of the Humphrey family's group worth billions. "Look, is this the husband you're talking about?" Philip showed me a photo. It was a selfie of him and Larry. The two of them were sitting on a submarine, bare-chested, with 4 or 5 blonde women beside them, all with great figures. "We're Harvard classmates, and we have a good relationship," Philip said calmly. This photo was taken on a private island in Hawaii. The island and the yacht were the 18th birthday gifts from the old man of the Humphrey family to him. "We have the same status, and we both like to have fun. We've been hanging out together for a long time. I have a lot of similar photos." He was only 18. I lowered my head and kept looking at that face. His overly delicate face had slightly wet bangs, showing a bit of dashing charm. The man hooked the corner of his mouth and frivolously pinched the chin of the blonde woman. His handsome eyebrows and eyes revealed a bit of greenness. without the calm and composed temperament precipitated by years and experience. It was Larry. Larry in his young and frivolous days. He had always been calm and composed. When he saw a pretty girl, he would just casually glance at her. I had never seen him like this. The world seemed so unreal that it made me feel dazed. Philip frowned slightly and tried to grab my wrist, but I reflexively avoided him. Those dark pupils turned cold again. Later, after we graduated from Harvard, he went back to manage the family business, and I was doing the power handover. We were busy, one in the north and one in the south, and we didn't have the opportunity to meet again. As he spoke, he had a half smile. But I mentioned him to you. You should have an impression. I looked at him helplessly. Yes, he had mentioned it. I remembered. On a chaotic late night, I was aching all over and sobbing softly, scolding him for being a jerk. Philip played with my hair contentedly, as if remembering something. He laughed softly. I have a friend surnamed Humphrey. He's from a noble family. If he saw you, maybe he's even more of a jerk than me. I pushed him. Don't shift the blame. He won't be as excessive as you. Philip said indifferently. You're too naive. He's the same kind of person as me, just better at pretending than me. My head ached. Memories of being with Larry flashed through my mind. Falling in love, meeting his parents, getting engaged, getting the marriage certificate. Everything had gone so smoothly. Larry's parents were both teachers, kind and gentle, treating each other with respect. After learning about my family situation, they didn't show any dissatisfaction. After we got married, to avoid interfering with our life, they didn't show up again. I thought it was like a pie falling from the sky, allowing me to marry into a good family and live a peaceful and happy life. And Philip exposed all of this. He told me that Larry's parents had died when he was 10. Larry was raised by the powerful old man of the Humphrey family. I thought. Philip said indifferently. The Humphreys value privacy and keep their identities hidden. Very few people know about them. Even the top leaders of your company don't know that they've recruited such a big shot. Right. He looked down at me and sneered. What were you thinking? You can't seriously think that Larry married you because he loves you. He's just playing with you. Grandfather Humphrey doesn't know about your existence. Right. He's been arranging a wife for him over there. Philip smiled. They're all from noble families. Young ladies from good families. What will you do then? Larry came home. When he entered the door, I smelled the faint aroma of food. Larry was wearing an apron and seriously stir-frying the food. When we first lived together, neither of us could cook, especially me. When I tried to stir-fry, I was always splashed with oil and got shocking blisters on my hands. Larry applied medicine to my hands and sighed helplessly. I'll cook from now on. We could have eaten outside, but he said that only by cooking at home could we feel like we were living a real life. I put down my bag and wordlessly hugged him from behind. He gently squeezed my hand. I sensed that something was wrong with you, so I bought the nearest flight back. The nearest flight. I had checked online just now. The nearest flight was at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. How did he get back? By private plane. I smiled bitterly. The husband I thought was an ordinary office worker turned out to be a hidden big shot. But what was he trying to achieve by marrying me? I put down my chopsticks and was about to ask him directly. But I saw a text message from Philip. Melissa, as long as you divorced Larry now, I still want you. Just this short line made his confident face seem to appear in front of me. I was silent for a long time. I looked up and met Larry's gaze. He looked at me quietly, his pupils as gentle as jade. After looking at each other for a few seconds, I averted my gaze. I lowered my head and replied to Philip. I won't divorce him. Larry stayed with me at home for a long time. I deliberately asked how his parents were. He said without changing his expression, they retired and are farming in the countryside. Don't worry. Let's bring them here to live for a few days. Our parents are old and should enjoy themselves. Larry laughed. He looked down at my face and said jokingly, how lucky I am to marry such a filial wife. He raised the corner of his eye slightly and pulled me into his arms. Don't be in a hurry to be filial to my parents. Actually, I have a grandfather. I'll take you to see him when we have time. He spoke the last few words in a low voice. I didn't hear them. I just rubbed against his chest with a bit of melancholy. Larry was gentle, restrained, and always thought of me. He was an overly excellent husband. If it could go on like this, I could pretend that I knew nothing. A few months later, Larry packed his luggage and went on a business trip again. I asked him where he was going. I'm going abroad to inspect a project for our leader. I searched for news about the Humphrey family's group. The Humphrey family was starting a new cooperation with a foreign enterprise. and it had reached the crucial stage of signing the contract. The top leaders of both companies had to be present. He wasn't inspecting the project for his leader. He was the leader. When I saw Philip downstairs at home, I was in a daze. I thought I had seen wrongly. I had already told him my attitude. I wouldn't divorce Larry. Shouldn't he have left City S long ago? Philip pulled me to the car with a dark face and locked the car door. Don't divorce him. Are you waiting for the old man of the Humphrey family to kill you? He said through gritted teeth. Melissa, the Humphrey family won't recognize you. The wife of the Humphrey family can't be someone like you. Philip wanted me to see Larry's true face, whether I agreed or not. He took me out of the country. He said that after Larry finished the project, he would attend the dance party hosted by the cooperation partner. There was a faint fragrance in the air, and clothes rustled. I stood in the dark and watched Larry bend over and kiss the hand of the beautiful woman with black hair with a smile. This is the daughter of the cooperation partners company, worth billions. If Larry marries her, it's a powerful alliance, which is of great benefit to the Humphrey family. Philip introduced to me indifferently. They had a betrothed marriage. If Larry hadn't refused, they would have gotten married long ago. Come to think of it, you're the one who came later, he said unhurriedly, and every word stabbed at my heart like a knife. Melissa. Philip turned me around and wiped away my tears. The happiness you had with him is all fake. You won't have a good ending. I can forgive you for falling in love with someone else. Come back to me. What do you think? Go back to you and be your mistress. Philip, listen carefully. I took a deep breath. Even if I divorced Larry, I won't be with you. I don't like you anymore. Even though I'm not in a good situation now, I have a proper status. I have a clear conscience both legally and morally. Philip sneered repeatedly. Very well. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he pulled me in front of him. He lowered his head and skillfully and forcefully kissed my lips. Was he crazy? I bit his tongue with all my strength, and then pushed him away fiercely and slapped him angrily. My fingers trembled, and I suddenly realized what I had done. Philip stared at me gloomily, and his eyes suddenly turned red. He closed his eyes and said hoarsely, "You've hit me. Stop making trouble and come back." Just as he finished speaking, a faint cry came from behind. "Philip, why are you here?" Miss Nora was wearing a luxurious long dress. When she looked at me, her face turned dark. Melissa. It seemed to be squeezed out through her teeth. The people around sensed that something was wrong and gradually surrounded us. Larry was among them. When he saw my face, his smiling face suddenly turned cold, as if he couldn't believe it. He and the beautiful woman with black hair beside him were looking over curiously. My husband was standing with another woman. They really made a beautiful couple. My heart ached. I retracted my gaze with red eyes. He wouldn't stand up for me, and he wouldn't admit my identity. Compared to the granddaughter-in-law his grandfather liked, I was the one who couldn't see the light. Miss Nora lived up to the expectations of those who were watching the scene. Without listening to any explanation, she questioned me with red eyes. "You've already left. Why are you back to steal my man?" Philip scolded softly. "We've broken up. Don't be unreasonable." Broken up. I was shocked. Clearly, I had heard their flirtatious voices on the phone before. Miss Nora burst into tears. "You broke up with me because of her." "Right. Philip, you're so heartless." She threw the wine glass in her hand at me. There were whispers around, and disdainful and contemptuous gazes shot at me, pinning me in place. I was stunned, and I couldn't react at all. My wrist was suddenly grabbed. Larry quickly raised his hand, and the wine glass hit his wrist bone heavily, making a clear sound. He frowned slightly, steadied me, and then looked at them coldly. "You said she had an affair with Philip." Miss Nora nodded without thinking. "They were flirting and colluding. I saw them kissing just now." "Miss Nora," Larry interrupted her suddenly, enunciating each word clearly. "You mean my wife had an improper relationship with your ex-boyfriend?" "Right." There was a dead silence in the room. Miss Nora widened her eyes, as if she had lost the ability to speak. He sneered and said, "Falsely accusing someone will have consequences. Miss Nora, you'd better think carefully before you speak. Maybe the situation was too embarrassing. Or maybe the news of Larry's marriage was too important." The crowd was silently evacuated to another venue. Even Miss Nora was coaxed to leave. Half an hour later, only the three of us were left in the room. Philip gave a soft laugh and said, "I didn't expect that this would be the situation when we met again after all these years." He raised his eyebrows and said, "I slept with this woman, and you took her. There's some kind of fate here." Larry calmly cursed and said, "What fate? Flirting with a married man. You've really brought honor to our alma mater." You took what was mine first. Philip turned to me, his eyes darkening a bit, and said, I was with her first. We were together for 7 years. Larry, can you let go of these 7 years? Larry gave him a deep look, took my hand, and walked out in silence. The hand holding my wrist was extremely forceful, full of anger, almost crushing my finger bones. He shed his gentle disguise, cornered me in a deserted corner, and the pressure around him was terrifying. So, the ex-boyfriend you were with for 7 years is Philip. I lowered my head in embarrassment. Tears trembled and fell, landing on his hand as if making a dent. He had lied to me, and I had lied to him. We both had something to hide in our past. Let's get a divorce. What did you say? I closed my eyes, trying my best to hold back the tremor in my voice. Let's get a divorce. Larry, no matter what your purpose was for marrying me. There was a moment of silence in my ears. Larry stared at me without moving, his eyes full of emotions. After a long while, he gave a soft laugh and said, Do you think? Why did I marry you? You should know what marriage means to someone like me. He said word by word, cruel and indifferent. If I just wanted to sleep with you, or if I was just playing around, I have 100 ways to get you. Why would I risk losing half of my property to marry you? He stubbornly asked me, as if he had to hear the answer from me. Tell me, why? I choked up, shook my head with tears in my eyes, and said, even if you love me now, so what? A lifetime is long. Marriage is built on unequal social status, and that's a gap that love can't bridge. The gap between us is too big. I don't like this kind of marriage. I don't deserve you, and I don't want you to settle for me. Larry suddenly let go of me. He lowered his eyes slightly and smiled self-deprecatingly. You see, this is why I didn't want to tell you the truth. Larry stopped pretending completely. He gave me a supplementary card with no credit limit and took me to his house abroad. It was more like a manor, covering several thousand square meters. You're not allowed to go back to our country by yourself. There are many shopping malls here. You can go shopping to kill time. After I'm done with this project, I'll take you back to see the old man. I was confused. Why should I go see your grandfather? Wasn't it time to get a divorce before the old man knew about me? Why do you think we're going to see my grandfather? Larry took a deep breath, as if restraining his anger, and his expression was a bit aggrieved. Melissa, you're his granddaughter-in-law. If you don't go, who else do you think should go with me to see him? The face of that beautiful woman with black hair flashed in front of my eyes. I pursed my lips and sneered. That girl at the party is a good candidate. I heard your grandfather likes her. What? Do you want her to be my step-grandma? Larry took a sip of water, gave me a cold glance, and said, You're just trying to make me angry. I almost laughed but held it back. That bit of bad mood disappeared in an instant. Larry was like this. Most of the time, he was emotionally stable, and sometimes he had a carefree temper. He could always catch all my emotions in time. He seemed to never show his sharp side to me. Why are you looking at me? Larry casually threw the bottle on the ground, raised his eyebrows slightly, and said, Are you afraid you won't be able to see my face after the divorce? So you want to take a good look now? I was speechless for a moment, turned around, and was about to go to the guest room, but he picked me up from behind and carried me to the bed. The bed in the top hotel was soft and warm, and it seemed to stretch all the way to my waist. He bent slightly, circled me in his arms in a defensive posture, and placed his hand on the pulse in my neck. Wife, I'm sleepy. Stay with me for a while. Larry's voice sounded deep, and his half-lowered eyelashes trembled slightly. He looked extremely tired. My heart softened. I stopped being angry with him and reached out to touch his soft bangs. Go to sleep. Larry didn't sleep well and had trouble falling asleep. But during our ambiguous period, once, on a business trip, Larry leaned on my shoulder and actually slept for 3 hours. When he woke up, he looked at me in a daze, half asleep and half awake. I still remember how cute he was at that time. That clever look disappeared, and he was as obedient as a child. I couldn't help but pinch his face. The next moment, he leaned down and kissed me. When Philip's message came, I couldn't bear to wake Larry up. I tiptoed out of his arms. Philip's message was short. Just a few words. Don't you want your passport? Damn it. After going abroad, Philip had been holding my passport. So many things had happened later that I forgot about it. Send it to me, or give me the location, and I'll send a runner to get it. Philip said indifferently, Come and get it yourself. I made an appointment with him by the fountain in the hotel garden. When I went down, he was already there, standing with his head down. I didn't know how long he had been standing there. He quietly watched me walk over, and there was a hint of tiredness between his eyebrows and eyes. Have you really thought this through? I didn't pay attention to what he said. I was in a hurry to put away my passport. It's getting late. I'm going back. Philip looked at me in silence. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me in front of him. Our bodies were close for just a moment, and I immediately pushed him away, suppressing my anger. We won't meet alone again. Philip, I won't come back to you. I don't like you at all. Take care of yourself. After saying that, I left quickly. The person behind me stood there in silence, like a frozen statue. I carefully pushed open the door of the suite. There were only less than 20 minutes left. Larry shouldn't be awake. Right. The door opened silently. The lights in the living room were turned off. Larry's cold voice sounded. Where have you been? I felt guilty and said, I went for a walk in the garden downstairs. Larry didn't say anything. He stood up expressionlessly, pressed me against the door step by step, and his eyes were full of emotions. Were you taking a walk with him? Not only taking a walk, but also talking closely. So he had seen it. I was silent for a moment and confessed honestly. Philip has my passport. He suddenly bit my tongue fiercely. Larry was a gentle person, whether in such moments or in daily life. He was as gentle as water. Even when he was dominant, he would never hurt me. Whenever he saw that I was sleepy, he would hold back his desires and end things. But now, he seemed to have shed all his disguises. He bit the most vulnerable part of me, again and again, filling me up. He held me tightly in his arms, in a posture as if he wanted to engrave me into his bones and blood. Melissa, you're not allowed to see him again. His voice was trembling, and the hand gripping my shoulder was also trembling. I won't allow it. We're already over. I desperately soothed him, hugging his face and kissing him randomly. There's nothing between us. Really, I don't like him anymore. He buried his head in my hair and gradually calmed down. Sorry, it's all my fault. I don't know how long it took before he said with some difficulty. I only dared to marry you after I took control of most of the company's shares. Originally, I wanted to wait a bit more. After I completely took over, I would confess to you. Then the old man wouldn't dare to threaten me with the company. Melissa, now that we're married, there's no gap between us. I didn't sign any prenuptial agreement. My wealth is shared with you, and you're protected by law. He took a deep breath, as if trying his best to control his emotions. You can't use this as an excuse to divorce me. I know. I won't divorce you. What I said before were just angry words. I promised over and over again. And finally, I changed the topic. Why did you come to City S? Larry closed his eyes and said, I had a fight with my grandfather. He wanted to force me into a marriage alliance. In a fit of anger, I left. I wanted to prove that I could do it without the Humphrey family. I burst into laughter. And then I met you. Larry lowered his head and kissed my eyes. This kiss was very gentle, with the comforting smell of everything returning to peace after the storm. I sat up straight. When did you fall in love with me? I don't know. I was taken aback. Larry looked at me calmly. Feelings accumulate bit by bit in every moment. Anyway, when I realized it, I couldn't leave you, he said in a low voice. When we were in love, I wanted to give you money and give you the best things in the world. But I was timid. I didn't know what you really wanted. Until one day, you said you really wanted to wear a wedding dress. Melissa, I love you. For someone like me, marriage is the most precious thing I can give you. The next time I saw Philip was on the day of Grandfather Humphrey's 80th birthday. I was there as the mistress of the Humphrey family. When Larry brought me in front of Grandfather Humphrey, the old man was so angry that he chased after his unfilial descendant with a walking stick. He glared at me angrily. You have to give me 3 chubby grandsons within 2 years, or you'll get out of the house. Larry readily agreed and then whispered in my ear, don't mind him. We can just say I'm not capable of it. I secretly nudged him. Philip looked much thinner. His smooth jawline looked even sharper, making him seem even more unapproachable. Larry and I were entertaining guests on the first floor. His gaze silently probed towards me through the crowd of men and women. He didn't bring a female companion. Miss Nora had already married another young talent in a flash marriage. She was smart and knew not to offend the Humphrey family. She specifically came to apologize to me, and we cleared up our misunderstanding. She also sent me a wedding invitation. She looked beautiful in her wedding dress, and her eyes were brighter when she smiled than when she cried. I sincerely wished her happiness and a long and happy marriage. Miss Nora smiled. Thank you. I've let it go. We both knew who she had let go of. She sighed. Actually, I'm still a bit unwilling. In the end, I didn't marry the man I liked for so many years. But I took the initiative to reject him. You're right. He doesn't deserve me anymore. Actually, I feel a bit sorry for him. Miss Nora gave me a meaningful look. Misery loves company. In the end, he didn't get the person he liked either. We're both pitiful. I corrected her. He doesn't like me that much. For a pet, how much affection can one give? Miss Nora shook her head. Feelings are so complicated. He can't even tell if it's just possessiveness or love for you. The night you left him, he got drunk with me and cried until he lost his voice. When he woke up, he pretended nothing had happened. Does he love you? No one can say for sure. Some people are geniuses in many fields, but they're a fool when it comes to love. Just then, Larry suddenly appeared, put his arm around me, and smiled. Then I should be a genuine genius without any flaws. Miss Nora gave him a glare. I held my phone tightly, only able to hear the man's deep breathing. I said honestly, I don't know either. What don't you know? Larry said indifferently. Haven't you heard the saying? Love is destined. My lover and I are a match made in heaven. I came back to my senses. Larry was chatting and laughing with the guests, and his hand was always openly placed on my waist. The wine glass swayed, reflecting the man not far away with red eyes. He stood there lonely, like a deserted puppy. Regarding feelings, who can say for sure? I took back my gaze and leaned my head on Larry's shoulder.